All right, Bemang, today is Tuesday. It is December 6th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. If you're watching on YouTube, you see Chief and I are not in the same room today. I am in the Barstool Chicago office. Chief looks like he is, he's got White Sox Dave in the background. He's in his Dwight Schrute neon orange hat that I gave him shit for last week. He is amongst the wilderness, which I assume is the Wells Cottage. Or the Wells.
That's exactly where we are, down in wonderful Canton, Illinois. While we're in the same state, we are about as opposite as we could be in locations.
Yes, we are. Just coincidentally, I did wear a nice little orange shirt.
I like that. So we're matching a little bit.
Yes, we are in spirit. I have my hunting gear on. How are we doing so far? Any nibblers?
I saw every single deer in the state of Illinois yesterday. Just nothing could come within shot, or they were the type of bucks that they're called spikes. Like they're just like these new little baby bucks. Not allowed to shoot those. Otherwise, that guy would have been in big trouble. Just wandering around by himself like an idiot. I was going to get him. So, but unfortunately, that didn't work out. And then there were some just sprinting right across my face. And it's like, I'm not a good enough shot to be able to like kind of track him and pull the trigger. And then one time Sydney's leg was in the way, and I'm like, I'm not going to shoot over your leg.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's hunting safety.
Yeah, that's gun safety 101. Yeah. So I passed that course. I don't pass many, but I passed that one. And so today is with the bow. Yeah. Basically right as soon as we're done here, I got to go back out and hopefully bring something home. If I kill something, you going to eat some?
Potentially. I'd have to have a good understanding about how it was transported and the temperatures, and make sure White Sox Dave didn't come near it, and I'd have to do a thorough investigation about how this came about.
Totally fair. But I mean? I'm going to make some smoked back straps on the trigger, so you're welcome to it if you want.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. Well, I wish you luck. Hopefully you guys get something today or tomorrow. I don't know how long you guys are staying out there, but hopefully you guys have better luck. I should say before we take off today, we got to talk about the Game Time app, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Give the gift of an awesome experience this holiday season with Game Time. And that's tickets, right, Chief? It's the way to go.
The absolute best. If you're not using Game Time yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. We had the music draft went live this week. I feel like winter's a good time for some concerts, especially the type of music I like. Also, I don't know about you, but for basketball doesn't start in my brain until Christmas Day. So we're basically right there. So if you want to see the Bulls, you want to see DePaul, wherever you're listening, college basketball, NBA, get on for that. And me, I start hockey when hockey starts, but I know most people start paying attention to hockey when the Winter Classic happens. That's right around the corner too. So use Game Time, get your wintertime tickets, get your Christmas presents. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah, we've been using it all year. Went to the Niners game. Went to Elton John, went to a bunch of things. So if you haven't given it a shot yet, now's the time. Game Time has all the best tickets, and you'll have an awesome price on them. So download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so we are not just going to talk about hunting, although we could. But we're going to get into a story that kind of took off on Twitter this past weekend because it's called the Twitter Files.
Yeah, and it's a big politicized story, and I should say that it really came through. And when you say kind of took off, okay, the original tweet, it was just the number one thread, all caps, the Twitter Files. This is from Matt Taibbi, who's an independent journalist who I really like. Okay, I find him to be, while I don't really agree with a lot of things he says, I find him to be a pretty straight shooter. And I actually am a subscriber to his Substack. So I was sitting on the bus to Wishfest, and he sent an email out to all of his subscribers saying, hey, like, I have this monster story coming, and I want to apologize. I know you guys are like, the hardcore fan base who support everything I do, but it was almost like this story is too big to be released first on Substack. So he was like apologizing to his readers. So I'm like, well, what could it possibly be? And he's just like, things are about to get weird. And they certainly did. But that first tweet thread, and not that Twitter is everything. It had 154,000 retweets. It had 21.6 thousand replies, and it had 371,000 likes. So it was as viral as it gets, especially for, a long thread that is basically a news dump, um, on Twitter like that. And basically every tweet was 75,000 likes or more. It really took off on the internet.
And for people, some background here, you heard soccer on this podcast probably a month or two ago, I believe it was. He does Breaking Points with Crystal Ball. Matt Taibbi is someone that he gave out as someone that he really enjoys and sees him as a good journalist who is pretty right down the middle and is someone that is not just spewing out shit, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would say historically, Taibbi runs much more to the left. He kind of came up through media, traditional forms, and then he's on the record like he called George H.W. Bush a donkey in a piece one time, or George W. Bush rather, a donkey, and so he's definitely, I would say, on the left politically, but I would say that he is as best what you want out of a journalist is a guy who, more than anything, is a slave to the truth. And I would also probably describe him as a free speech absolutist. And that's really where the crux of this whole Twitter scandal, and this goes back to like the Hunter Biden laptops and censorship and how much people at Twitter knew, how much engagement they had with each political party in the run up to the 2020 election, and this story has gone everywhere. And people can make up their own minds about it, and they should read through the thread. But it is pretty shocking. It maybe not shocking necessarily, but it's confirmation of maybe the worst fears. And there were denials on Twitter's part, and different terms of service violations are the reason they took. But then when the emails get leaked, it kind of paints a different story.
Yeah, and like I want to bring that up too here out of the gate, because I know you say that out, and like that is such a hot button issue, and like everyone has opinions about it, and like you say that name and you say the word laptop, and everyone like the skin just jumps, and like that's not honestly what this show's about. And if you've been listening to this forever, you know that. But however, like we've been covering this whole Elon and Twitter thing like since the jump, and this is a huge story. And if you didn't read the thread, which I assume many of you didn't, this is just kind of breaking down what was in the thread, because essentially, the way I understand it, he did not release this on his Substack because Elon gave this to him and was like, hey, since I own Twitter, I'm giving this to you, Matt, and I want you to release this on Twitter. So it was kind of clunky. Yeah, exactly. It's a very good business by Elon. It was very clunky the way he released it, because he had to release it in a huge fucking thread. So it was hard for people to digest because they had to go through this huge thread. And people were like, oh, what the fuck, Matt? Why didn't you release it on Substack? Well, he's like, well, I was given this by Elon, so I had to use it on his platform. So that's quite literally all we're doing is breaking down this huge thing that was released over the weekend, so you don't have to go through this thread, right? I mean, we're not.
You're welcome.
Yes, exactly. You're welcome. We're not going to be giving opinions on what was in it and whatnot. But I just want to clarify that, because there's so many fucking. People know what I'm saying.
It's such a nuanced issue, and yet it's such a lightning rod kind of thing. And I'm not interested in lightning rods, but I find this it's the biggest story right now on the internet, and I feel like it's something that you and I, going back to Sirius, have always kind of talked about. What is social media's role in like the dialogue? And do you remember having those debates about like what should happen? Yeah. And I remember, so this is probably before even the like the scandal, we'll say, because I think that was like your typical October surprise was that New York Post story. So this was even like the summer before that. I'm like, it just never, I don't know. It's something that I was just like, it should just like almost be like the phone. Like everybody, it doesn't matter what your theory is, but it's like Twitter is, to me, and Elon has said similar things since his takeover, but I remember saying it back then. It's like, it is the new town square, and you got to just be able to kind of let it
Yeah.
rip. And you wouldn't, even if you're like the worst person in the world, Verizon or AT&T wouldn't be like, you can't talk on our phones. And I kind of think that that's what these platforms need to be. And that's kind of how Taibbi kind of starts off this thread. The fourth tweet in the thread is: Twitter, in its conception, was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. That's tweet number 4. Tweet number 5 would be: in an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. And then he goes on to say, as time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. Slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well, first a little, then more often, then constantly. By 2020, requests from connected actors, and they don't mean like literal actors, they just mean people involved in this process. Requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team, and the reply would come back: handled. And he posts this screenshot of this email that has 5 different tweets from various accounts, none that I recognize. It just looks like kind of random people in this first one, because it's like Jared with a bunch of numbers, LET, and then a bunch of numbers, like nothing. It's not like some major outlet, but that was like what they did. Um, and then Elon, in his response to this thread at one point, just replied to that last one where it said handled. I think he quote tweeted and just said, quote, handled, LOL. Like, how preposterous is this, that the DNC can reach out to Twitter, be like, hey, get rid of these 5 tweets from these people. And I made the point that they're like kind of random names, and maybe they have some kind of influence. There weren't names that I recognized. But the fact that they took the time, the DNC took the time to go through and find these, or the Biden team, that one was specifically from the Biden team, and then they just like go handle them, and then they do. But so someone thought it was worthwhile enough to like isolate those 5 or 6 tweets and ask somebody to get rid of them, and then they would do it. And they, in his 9th tweet, he says celebrities and unknowns alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. And then the screenshot says, I grabbed the first one under SI, defer to safety on high profile on the second one. And the other one that and this one is specifically from the DNC. It says James Woods, and James Woods is a former actor. I feel like I know the cartoon version of James Woods from Family Guy more than I know him from any like real acting he's done.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who has a lot of political opinions, and they just wanted him out, and I believe his account was suspended. So, it's not like, and Taibbi, I think, goes out of his way to say that, hey, like, this is not something that is unique to the Democratic Party or the DNC or Biden. Both parties were playing this game. So both parties would submit these requests, and basically be like kind of dancing on the First Amendment, where it's like, we have free speech baked into our Constitution. And so he says both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign, those requests were received and honored. But then the problem is, it's hard for Twitter and their employees to be completely down like 50-50 on this issue and make it fair, because, and he says, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts, because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation. There were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left. And he says in parentheses, well, Democrats than the right. And he goes, contributions by political party of the recipient, and kind of breaks down who's donating money where. And in 2020, Democrats received a little over 900,000. dollars in campaign donations, 90, and then Republicans got 14 grand. So it's like it's a pretty significant um, imbalance, at least in terms of the political affiliation of Twitter employees. So it just made it inherently an easier tool for people on the left to use to suppress the speech and speech that they didn't necessarily like. And this is where it kind of gets nuanced, because I am sure that Twitter got requests from the DNC to remove tweets and or videos or what have you from legitimately sources that were doing disinformation. Okay, I'm sure that happened, and that some of those requests were definitely valid. And I think that's where this thing gets, it gets really complicated, because it was like, well, where is the line and who should make the request? And there's so many tweets that it's like, how can you even possibly, it's like finding a needle in a stack of needles, like to find the right, so not even a haystack. It's just like you have to find one needle in a stack of all this other shit, and then you have to analyze it and who it came from and who saw it, and if that information in the tweet is real. And it is an overwhelmingly daunting task that I kind of think that while I am a free speech person, I think that if I were Elon, part of my motivation for being like, I'm going to be a free speech person is because being able to monitor everything is impossible. And there are laws on the books and statutes on the books that protect social media companies from the repercussions of some of this false information or hateful information. And the phone companies have that same right, where it's like, hey, if one guy calls another guy on a Verizon phone or Verizon services, let's go murder these people. Well, Verizon is not held accountable for that, because they're just providing the platform to make the call, but they're not complicit in it. And Twitter, Facebook, all these social media companies, they are protected under that same statute. So they don't have a legal obligation to fight, quote unquote, disinformation. They're kind of doing it on their own accord or at the request of the political parties or different people like that. So it is like, it's almost like, why are you burdening yourself with this? And it's maybe they feel like a moral obligation in some instances, but then it because it became so easy to do, that it became corrupted. And it started off, let's just have a free and open conversation anywhere at any time all over the world, to, well, let's use this to manipulate speech so it kind of goes in our favor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the landscape changed, right?
Yeah, and the landscape definitely changed, and I also think that the tool itself became way more powerful. Like, Twitter's been around since 2007. I got it in 2011. When did you get on?
2013.
In like 20 what?
2013.
And in like a real way, were you active on it kind of from the jump?
No, that I honestly got on it when I got the internship, when I got this job.
Okay.
That was the first time.
Yeah. So I was blogging a little bit myself before that, and that's why I was using it. I didn't even really know how to use it. It was like one of those, like, I don't even really know what this thing is. And then it was not a factor at all in the 2012 election between Obama and Romney, like at all. Like, no one was talking about Twitter at that point.
But I'm saying, like, killing stuff and influencing media has always been a thing.
Totally.
But the landscape where it's like, well, now this is the big thing.
Yeah.
Is just different, right?
Yeah. And I do think the landscape, I think everything has become more politicized, because that's just how things go now. And the only forms of true mass media back historically was like, your national broadcast news with Walter Cronkite or whoever it was. And then that really changed with cable news, and then got a whole different ball game with Twitter. And it became a thing where Twitter could really influence, and social media, not just Twitter, but all social media, could influence what the conversation even was. And that was always, you filtered it through editors, you filtered it through Walter Cronkite, you filtered it through, quote unquote trusted sources. And it was an
Yeah.
hour a day. And if you missed that hour, well, then you didn't see it. And it's like, whatever. And then people just have dialogues and debates about it. And that's kind of, to me, like one of the real shames of how things have gone with Twitter. And I can't remember, this is not like a chief quote, but I remember hearing this somewhere where you really do need, you can't just have people on the extremes either way, and you need to have a place where people of different political opinions can constantly be in dialogue with each other so they know what the other person is thinking, and you're working out ideas and thinking, and you get to a place in the middle where nobody is 100% happy, because it's like, I had to sacrifice this and you had to sacrifice that, but we came together and we made this thing work. And that's kind of how the government worked. It feels like, at least I'm sure people back in the day thought the government was all fucked up too, but now it seems like we've gotten to a place where it's so politicized on either, and radical on either side. And the political companies, these social media platforms, they want the engagement and they want people mad, and that's why they change the algorithm to get people fired up, and then they're shocked when people use this when they use the platform to spew these rhetorics where they're not necessarily trying to tell the truth, they're just trying to win.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like it's too impossible of a task to control everything and get everything right. So you might as well, to me, just make it free and open, and then the best idea wins. And the best, that's really what I would like to see happen. It's just have the best idea win, and not have it skewed by other people who have the ability to skew it, whether you like it or not. And so when you keep going through, like, and then he goes back and was like the Kayleigh McEnany, who's on Fox News now, but she was like the press secretary at that time. Twitter suspended her account, and it was because she talked about the Hunter Biden laptop story. And it's like, wait, she's just talking about a story that ended up being factual. And you could, and if they didn't want it because it was hacked or whatever, they kind of kept going through all these different guidelines, trying to figure out, like, what can we file this under so we can get her down. But you can't have the press secretary. It's not like she was inciting violence or anything like that. She was just saying, like, this is a real story and talking about it. And she got her account, the press secretary of the United States of America, got her account suspended for talking about a factual thing, which was this Hunter Biden's laptop. That, to me, is like, that's a step way too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll continue getting into it. I do want to take a quick break here, though, Chief, because I want to talk about Manscaped, because 'tis the season for clean balls. Fa la 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 la. From stocking stuffers to white elephants, Manscaped's products are here at the top of every wish list. Help all men in your life go from eggnog to nice hog this December by going to manscaped.com using code DOGWALK for 20% off plus free shipping. Manscaped is a one-stop shop for all your holiday needs. They have the perfect gift in the Platinum Package 4.0 plus loads of little presents, perfect for stocking stuffers. It includes the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, body wash, deodorant, crop preserver, crop reviver, and the travel bag in Manscaped boxers. Another great gift is the Shears 2.0, their full kit for nail care with scissors, clippers, tweezers, and a file for the traveling man. There's also the new Preserve Cologne that brings a light, breezy, woodsy feel and gives that fresh tree scent even after the holidays are over. Manscaped's great. I feel like we just talked woodsy. Right behind you, if you're watching on YouTube, Chief, you're just the woodsiest man in the world right now. So
yeah. And look, I've got some of the products at home. I love being out in the woods. I love being out in the country, but I can't wait to get home, get trimmed up, get cleaned up, and use all those Manscaped products to get me where I need to be, smelling back like I'm ready to re-enter an office workspace.
It's honestly a perfect stocking stuffer. They're not lying. So if you're looking for a gift for someone, this is it. You shouldn't be mixing your face trimmer and your ball trimmer. So do yourself
Do.
a favor and buy some of this, because I know a lot of our listeners out there are doing this, unfortunately. So do yourself a favor. Stop mixing those, people. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DOGWALK at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DOGWALK. Manscaped, for a perfect gift that will be the holidays' biggest hit.
Yeah.
All right, Chief. So what else did you find here with?
I thought one of if you go down to tweet 23 of the thread, this is something to me that I found very interesting, unusual, alarming. I'm interested on your take on this, but the decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, and with former head of legal, policy, and trust. I'm gonna butcher the name, Vijaya Gotti, playing a key role. And so it's like, hey, we're gonna make these monumental decisions about Twitter, the way it's used, how it's viewed in the political landscape at this heightened, tense political time, October before a November election. And we're going to make this decision and not tell the CEO. Can you imagine any other company? Like, you imagine that happening at Barstool, where it's like everybody's conspiring to make some major policy change and not tell Dave?
No, I could not imagine that.
That to me, it was like, because it does seem, and I don't know, I've seen Jack Dorsey interviewed a few different places, Rogan, etc., where he was like the founder. And if you go back to that original tweet, original tweet from that thread, it was like its mission was to create a place where you can have global and instant communication and sharing of information. And I think when you listen to him speak other places, it was like he was lamenting the fact that it had kind of gotten away from that, even if it was necessarily so to fight, bots and financial fraud and things like that. But he was lamenting the fact that it was like not this, it had grown it into something out of his control and grown into something that he could no longer really control. And I think it seems like the people around him knew that, and they probably suspected that he would not be on board with their decision. So they just cut him out. It was like, it's almost like, Brutus and Caesar, where everybody's conspiring against him, and Brutus eventually stabs Caesar in the back, where it's like all the people around are making the decision, but not telling the top guy. And there was a quote about it saying they just freelanced it. Okay. Where it's like, hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone knew that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. And then you skip down, it was like, by this point, everyone knew that this decision was fucked. And it was like, so they knew it was going to cause them all sorts of problems. And then people really started questioning them, being like, hey, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this suppression of this story doesn't fit into any of your stated guidelines. What are the grounds for removing the story and suppressing the story? And they basically just didn't really give a concrete answer, because they knew that they were playing just a game of politics at that point. And I found that to be so, like, no wonder Elon was so worried about people like taking Twitter down. He was taking the key passes. He was worried about people breaking in and like ruining it. It's probably because he saw what had happened already, where they would kind of conspire to leave the previous CEO out of the discussion. And
now, is there a thing? Is there an element here where Dorsey was just so distant, though? Wasn't he on like two boards? Wasn't he like the CEO of two companies or something?
Probably, but a lot of those, I don't know if but people do that.
Yeah, I know people do that,
yeah.
But he was a CEO of two. He did something where it was like, all right, like he.
Yeah, it did feel like he was starting to remove himself a little bit, but you would still think that a decision of that magnitude, where you're basically making a decision on, does Twitter respect the Constitution of the United States, that you would have to run that up the flagpole, because it became a major crisis. And he didn't find out about it, because now it's like you have people from, the head of public policy. You have this other company, this research firm that works with this guy named Charles Zadbo. Like this email, where they're saying, yes, like Lauren is a person who works at Twitter, Culbertson. Yesterday, Net Choice's Chris Marchese met informally with 9 Republicans and 3 Democrat House staffers to gather intel about Facebook and Twitter and the New York Post story. The staffers are from that hub, and it was just, they basically were like, this is high-level takeaway. Every Republican said that this is a tipping point, this is too much, and both Democrats and Republicans were angry because everyone could see the writing on the wall, that it became instantly a bigger scandal. And this is true in life, where the cover-up is always worse than the initial crime, where it's like, so now it's like you have this Hunter Biden laptop story, and if you're a Republican, or I'm sorry, if you're a Democratic strategist, you let it go out there, and it's like, look, yeah, the president's got a kid who's into crack and hookers, and he's acting out of line, but like, he's not the one running for president, and you could probably make that compelling argument about that and just move on. But as soon as it's like, well, Twitter and Biden, and they're all in cahoots, and it became a bigger scandal because it was no longer about Hunter Biden. It was really about free speech and censorship. And that is a way bigger cudgel for the right to hit big tech and Twitter and the Democrats with than simply, we got this knucklehead kid who's acting a fool, and he's got some shady shit sexually on his drug use, sexual instances on his laptop. So, and there are other incriminating things on there that are under investigation currently that I don't feel comfortable talking about because I don't know enough about them. But I think at that time, if you go back to 2020, the salacious headlines and those pictures that I think everybody has seen, I really think that if you just let it go out there, it's that storyline. I don't know if it sticks that hard. And I also don't know if it really impacts the election, because it's like, well, that's not Joe. That's his kid. His kid's fucked up. Everybody has fucked up kids. There's one in every family, so they say. Maybe not to that degree where he's doing crack with hookers and wherever he was, but it's one of those things that they let it. Twitter made it a bigger story by suppressing it than it probably would have been.
Mountain from molehill, or whatever the fucking quote is.
Yeah, they made a mountain out of a molehill.
There
exactly.
You go. There you go.
So it's a very and then there's things in here where Twitter starts to try to defend their actions, and it was basically Twitter files continued. This is tweet 36. The First Amendment isn't absolute. So the guy Szabo, who works for that Net Choice, Szabo's letter contains chilling passages relaying Democratic lawmakers' attitudes that they want, quote, more moderation. And as for the Bill of Rights, it's not absolute. So they had that panel of 12 where everybody was mad that they didn't censor it. But then you had these other kind of the Net Choice people, which are basically political insiders, that they're saying that this is Democratic lawmakers, that they want more moderation. They want more limits on free speech. They don't want it to be kind of the Wild West, and that the Bill of Rights is not absolute. So hearing that in a letter, that the Bill of Rights, something that is the foundation of our life here in America, is not absolute. That's quite the twist. So we'll see. And this whole document, this whole thread is supposedly only part one, that there's going to be more coming out. There's been thousands of emails that Elon is releasing through Taibbi and maybe others as time goes on. And it's something that we're going to continue to watch. But it does make it, I almost feel like Elon is going to force the government to make a decision on content moderation and policy, and kind of maybe adjudicate that in the public sphere and see what that looks like, because right now they're still kind of waiting to decide like what's that going to look like.
Yeah, and also I brought up that Jack Dorsey thing. Like, obviously I know many people sit on like multiple boards and shit like that, yeah. But I remember there was definitely a big talking point where people didn't know how into it he was because he had something else going. I can't find it exactly what it was. It might be this block.
I remember that too.
Yes, remember there was like this thing. It's like, how the fuck is he CEO of two things? Like, it was. Yeah. There was definitely a big thing where it's like, what is this? What because he's also a super polarizing guy where he's into that meditation. I don't know if you saw that Black Mirror episode. where like they said it was loosely based off him, or a lot of people thought it was based off him.
I don't know if I saw that one, but yeah.
It was in the last season, and like I don't know, it was a fascinating episode where like they had a hostage in a rideshare app, and like they went and the guy was tweeting along, or it wasn't Twitter, I should say, but the guy was using social media that looked a lot like Twitter, and then they were like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And they went to the CEO, and there was just some guy like meditating off of like a fucking, this little overlooking a cliff, and it was like highly
scraggly beard and a nose ring.
Yeah, it was very highly.
Yeah,
but who knows who they were really trying to represent? But
it's something that and this is. I wish that we would just give everybody in general in life and in these decisions a little bit more grace. Because this is like a wild technology with the internet and social media that is so new still on the landscape and evolving constantly that we do have to kind of, I'm hopeful that, people say that I've been like a shill for Elon, and other people say that I hate Elon. So I don't know. I guess I'm just an optimist. And I feel like the way things had been and the way they had been trending, I thought was unhealthy and not I thought there are many instances where free speech was suppressed either one way or another, either just through the algorithm sometimes or through policy or just making people afraid to say what they want to say.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. So I want it to be, I want it to be a place where people feel comfortable saying things and having a deeper discussion. And we can kind of get to a place where we don't, 50% of the country doesn't hate the other 50%. I think that's bad. And so I want people to kind of get along and have nice dialogues. And so we can all just have a happier, better time on the internet and in life.
It'd be nice, and this is something that we've talked about and something we've disagreed about, because I think like you just can't have shit that's blatantly fake and false out there. And I know it comes like, well, who decides what's blatantly fake and false, and that's what's tough and that's what's harmful. But it's like, hey, like it happens too often where they pull shit after the fact, where it's like, hey, this person was talking about this in this chat room after he did this murder or whatever, and it's like, well.
Let me give you the most low stakes example of this. We have that picture. Now we're down here hunting where you got me, Sydney, and Dave. And somebody made Dave miniature. And he looks like it's a hilarious, like the picture just cracks me up because he looks just small enough where you're like, wait, what? And you read the replies to that. And there are so many people being like, is that real? Like, how short is he? And it's like, no, it's not real. So that's part of the thing too. Like, I don't know if you have to cater to the people who can't figure out simple things. Like you have to be able to look through the weeds and be like, this is all the information. And if you get duped because you're a moron, and I also think that, like you said at the beginning, we've been getting duped forever. But it doesn't matter what the platform is. So it's almost like they just don't like it when they're duped in a way that it conflicts with the way that they're trying to dupe.
Yeah, but the duping is getting better. You saw that we talked about that 60 Minutes where they're doing those deep fakes with the fake Tom Cruise and whatnot. It's like,
that's fucked up. Yeah.
Yes. Like, what do we do about that? At some point, someone's going to be able to do a virtual podcast and put a fake me and you in the Wells fucking hunting lounge and me in the Barstool Chicago studio and do this. And like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's not an easy.
Not easy.
It's not easy, but
not easy.
Yeah.
So I am an optimist, and I hope that maybe things settle down a little bit, and we get to a place where having dialogue is rewarded again, and not just like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're a socialist, you're a Nazi, all these, like, let's just talk to each other and let's just talk it out.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
So and the only way you can do that is if you have free speech.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. All right then. We'll wrap it there and we'll see if there's any updates from there. Thank you, Chief. Good luck out there.
Yep.
Get that
I'm going
deer.
to get a deer.
All right. Good luck. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for listening. That's it for today. We will be back tomorrow. We will see you all then.